Thank you for giving me the opportunity. Today, I will be speaking to you on corneal regeneration in dry eye management, why it matters. We all know that ocular surface staining is a very important test, which is essential when we look at dry eye diagnosis as per the new studies. And it helps us to not only diagnose dry eye, but there are various staining techniques that we use in the process, such as the fluorescein and the rose bengal, to look at the extent of ocular surface damage with these dyes. It also tells us about the grade of dry eye. We know that a very mild dry eye may be having no real staining on the surface, whereas a patient with a more severe dry eye may have extensive ocular surface staining. So it helps us not only with diagnosis, but also tells us about the severity of dry eye. And once we know what is the grade of dry eye we are looking at, it also helps us to then decide what would be the most appropriate line of management for that patient. We know that dry eye is a very diverse condition. We have certain cases of dry eye where there is a lot of ocular surface staining. However, we also have a significant number of cases where the patients, though symptomatic, may not show significant ocular surface staining. So what are we looking when we look at ocular surface staining? Basically, on the corneal surface, we look at what we call as punctate epithelial erosions, which are basically a focal loss of surface epithelial cells. And these could be fine or coarse. And we also like to look at the localization of these erosions on the corneal surface. We know that in very mild cases, we might get punctate erosions in the lower thirds of the cornea. And in very severe cases, as the condition progresses, we can have a diffuse staining over the entire corneal surface. So why do we really get epithelial erosions in dry eye? And how does it help? So as I said, it helps us for diagnosis of dry eye, grading the severity of dry eye, for deciding what is the treatment that would be appropriate in a given dry eye grade, and also for following up the patients, because it helps us to know whether the patient is responding or improving following our treatment. And why do we get them? So there could be various factors. One could be mechanical factor, where we have frictional loss of corneal epithelial cells due to poor lubrication of the epithelial surfaces. And then we could have other factors, such as we know that there is a decrease in the subbasal nerve density in patients who have dry eye, especially which is chronic. And this results in a loss of trophic impulses to the ocular surface epithelium and also slows down the epithelial recovery. Cytokines on the ocular surface, because of ongoing inflammation in dry eye, can also lead to damage to the ocular surface epithelium. Patients with dry eye are also very sensitive to the toxic effects of medications and preservatives on the ocular surface. However, very often what happens is that when we look at treatment of a dry eye patient, it seems to be that we are only using lubricants and lubricants and lubricants. However, we should understand that lubricants have their own limitations. They are a palliative line of management and do not really address the core mechanisms of the dry eye disease. How do we address the epithelial problems in dry eye then? So as we saw earlier, we need to treat each of the mechanism which is responsible for causing epithelial erosions or epithelial surface breakdown. So for the mechanical problems, we need to improve lubrication, and best would be if we can use an agent which not only lubricates but also promotes epithelial regeneration. For neurotrophic factors and for inflammation, we need to use anti-inflammatory therapy, and we need to look at drugs which might aid neural regeneration. And to control the toxic effect of medications, we need to be very selective in what drops that our patient should be using so that the ocular surface stays protected. So what are our goals of therapy? Our goals of therapy is to reduce inflammation on the ocular surface and in the lacrimal gland, normalize the tear film, reduce the surface inflammation, stimulate surface healing, and improve the neural feedback loops. When we look at corneal structure and innervation, we realize that the ocular surface epithelium has a lot of tight junctions. So the corneal epithelial tight junction form a barrier. And in patients with dry eye, there is a breakdown of this barrier function. The ocular surface and the corneal layers also have a very rich, abundant supply through the subbasal nerve plexus. And in chronic dry eye, there is a breakdown or there is a damage to the epithelial and the subepithelial nerve plexus, and this correlates with ocular surface staining. How does our corneal epithelium really heal following a corneal injury? To understand this, you can look at this diagram, which shows us that whenever there is a corneal epithelial injury, it triggers the corneal nerves. The corneal nerves then release factors such as the nerve growth factor, substance P, and the calcitonin gene-related peptide. These further lead to a release of several growth factors, including the TGF-beta and the epithelial growth factor and others. And these then upregulate genes which activate and cause an increased expression of fibrin, fibronectin, and hyaluronic acid. The fibronectin helps to form a temporary scaffold over the bare corneal surface, and this also activates the edge epithelial cells to start migrating and adhering to the injured or wounded tissue surfaces. There is also an activation of the transient amplifying cells and the limbal stem cells, which then increase the epithelial cell proliferation and regeneration. And eventually the wound gets fully epithelialized. We know that there is a CD44 receptor which gets upregulated whenever there is corneal injury or there is a wound on the corneal epithelial surface. We know that hyaluronic acid binds to the CD44 receptor and promotes the corneal epithelial regeneration and provides hydration to the ocular surface, thus promoting the healing process. Once again, if we look at the wounded surface, as you can see on the picture on the left, there is an expression of fibronectin. The fibronectin deposits on the surface of the wounded tissue, and then the cells of the epithelium just next to the wounded area start replicating and dividing, adhering to the raw area, and then spreading across to help the surface to heal. And once the surface heals, they start moving also in a vertical direction to provide us with the compact 5 or 6 layers of epithelium, which is there normally. Clinical studies have shown that whenever we use a combination of fibronectin and hyaluronic acid, or if we use hyaluronic acid in patients who have corneal epithelial breakdown, the binding of the hyaluronic acid to the fibronectin on the wounded cornea promotes corneal epithelial healing. As a corollary, patients who have non-healing epithelial defect may be significantly benefited by using drops which have hyaluronic acid, and this has been amply documented in several clinical studies. Several experimental and clinical studies have also showed us that the healing of corneal epithelial defects is significantly faster when we provide hyaluronic acid based drops to the ocular surface in patients with or in experimental situations where the corneal epithelial defects have been created. We know that there are several preparations of hyaluronic acid which come in different concentrations and different molecular weights. When you look at corneal epithelial healing, we realize that the healing is independent of the molecular weight of the hyaluronic acid molecule, but the concentration of 0.1% is most optimal in providing a faster regeneration of the surface. When we put hyaluronic acid based eye drops on the ocular surface, we know that the tear film breakup does improve for a period of up to 3 to 4 hours following installation. So by providing a healthy tear film for about a few hours following installation, we can say that if we use these drops 4 to 5 times a day during the waking hours, the patient will have fairly healthy tear film which is maintained on the ocular surface and will help to protect the corneal epithelium and give symptom relief to the patient. Let's look at how is the hyaluronic acid molecule behave on the ocular surface. So the hyaluronic acid is a sponge-like structure which has a very high affinity for water molecules. And just like a sponge, it holds the water and then slowly releases it into the tear film. And this can go on, as we said, for about 2 or 3 or 4 hours following installation. It provides moisture which uniformly then spreads across the ocular surface, maintains tear film stability and the wettability of the surface, and therefore improves epithelial healing because of the biological properties. Several studies clinically have shown us that in a wide variety of dry eye conditions, sodium hyaluronate 0.1% not only improves the symptom scores in these patients, but also reduces the ocular surface staining. And this has also been found in patients who have more severe varieties of dry eye, such as the Sjogren syndrome. Among the various polymers which are available for dry eye management, hyaluronic acid has the highest comfort index compared to the others. Therefore, when we look at a patient with dry eye who has an unstable tear film, using hyaluronic acid based eye drops not only increases the tear film stability and provides hydration to the ocular surface, it also accelerates wound healing and helps to provide a healthy epithelium on the ocular surface. Of course, whenever we look at dry eye management, in addition to the lubricating and drops, we also look at anti-inflammatory and other therapies. Use of cyclosporin, for example, reduces the inflammation on the ocular surface, and a long-term use of cyclosporin can also improve the neural regeneration on the ocular surface and cornea in patients with dry eye. One of the triggers for inflammation is epithelial breakdown, and therefore, just by the sheer fact that the hyaluronic acid can promote epithelial healing and protect the corneal epithelium, I feel that use of these drops may definitely help to also suppress inflammatory responses on the ocular surface. As I alluded to earlier, patients who have a normal ocular surface health probably can use several drops several times a day for a very long period of time without having any problems on the ocular surface. However, when we look at a surface which is not healthy, for example, a patient with dry eye, their surface is going to be much more sensitive to the use of any medication, and they often end up in getting ocular toxicity, which might manifest with an increase in ocular surface staining. Therefore, we need to be selective and we need to be cautious when we are using medications in patients with dry eye so that we can reduce the number of preservatives that we load on the ocular surface and reduce the use of toxic surface medications. And as science progresses, I'm sure that we would like to see less and less of ocular surface staining. And we hope that with better treatment modalities in the near future, we would be able to have a zero ocular surface staining in patients with dry eye, giving them an excellent quality of vision and an improved quality of life. And this would be something that we all hope to see in the future. Thank you all for your patience.